Hey everyone, Dr. Dan here. Here's the question. Extroverts or introverts? Who converts more prospects? You may be sitting there, and if you're an extrovert, I might have some good news for you. If you're an introvert, I also may have some good news for you. The reality is this. There was research done at the University of Pennsylvania, right? And let me just pause for just a moment. If you're an introvert and you've convinced yourself at this point in your life that you are inadequate at communicating or not as successful or not as skilled or qualified as a communicator compared to an extrovert, you need to listen close, because that's what I told myself for so long. I grew up family, middle child, family of 8. I am an introvert by nature. I get my energy when I kind of seclude from people or exclude myself, like watching a movie or vegging out or kind of just being on my own or with my family or with my wife. Like, I get more energy that way than being around a ton of people. So by some definitions, that qualifies me as an introvert. So I have let that kind of, or I grew up very shy. I grew up very not wanting to, and to this day, I've told the story of I didn't, I had a paper out, but I wouldn't go collect money because I felt, too shy to go to a door. I didn't want to confront people. And so I tell you this because if you're an introvert and you've told yourself that, I've got some good news for you. But it's also got some very specific news that's going to require your action on that. Now, if you're an extrovert, I'm going to tell you, you're at a disadvantage. So here's the research. So you know me, I don't do anything without research and valid proof as to why what I say is true. Here's the reality, is that the University of Pennsylvania, they did research, a guy named Adam Grant. Here's what he did. They studied a software company. They knew exactly who was introverts and exactly who was extroverts. They put them out, there was their sales force, and they went out and they sold. They followed them over a period of months. And what the conclusion was is that the extroverts are more likely to get the sales job. They're more likely to enjoy sales, and they're actually more likely to get promoted because they're kind of loud and obnoxious. But when it comes to actual results, selling more, getting results, persuading, influencing people, the introverts blew them out of the water. Now, there's a caveat to that, but I need to start there to get you to realize introverts won. There's a reason why they won, and you have to listen to the point of this video is, it doesn't matter if you're an extrovert or if you're an introvert. The reason why these introverts actually got better results is because they listened. They cared about the prospect's needs before their own. They weren't waiting to get their point across. They actually listened. The person felt like they cared. There was empathy. There was an exchange of communication that involved more than the words. It was they actually cared. The pauses, the listening, right? I teach my daughters, I teach them 2 ears, 1 mouth. That means we should be listening double time. And so as an introvert, that's easier for me because I'm always asking questions because I want to know about people. I want to know, and I want sometimes to avoid me having to tell about myself, I want to hear about them. And so that's advantageous in the influence, sales, and business world. And so, and here's what I'll tell you this. If you're actually wanting to be the best of both, the salesperson, the best salesperson you could be, the best influencer, communicator, or persuader, what they found out is it's not necessarily being a complete introvert, because those that were huge introvert on the big spectrum, if you were a major introvert, right, you were too shy and kind of scared of your own shadow, so you wouldn't even go confront anybody anytime. You wouldn't even talk to people. So you don't want to be that. And it turns out the extroverts are very horrible because they just want to talk about themselves. It turns out the best actual communicators are what they call the ambiverts. Playing baseball growing up, you had an ambidextrous person. That means they could hit right-handed, they could hit left-handed. Amba is both, right? So ambivert is, I've got a mix of introversion and I've got a mix of extroversion. I know when to push and I know when to be quiet. I know when to listen and I know when I need to go after it. And so that becomes the most important key. So what I want to leave you with, and the reason why this video is, I want you to realize that through a lot of surveys and a lot of research, they've realized that the majority of human beings are actually on this spectrum where they're the 80%. They're not 10% crazy introverts and not the top 10% crazy extroverts. They're in this 80%, which means chances are that's you. And it also means that you are a great communicator. You're one of the best. You just got to know when to be an introvert and when to be an extrovert, right? And here's 3 tips that I want to leave you with so that you know how to be a better communicator by being a better ambivert, right? Or some call it omnivert. It's I know when to push, I know when to pull. I know when to go in, I know when to talk, I know when to listen. And so here's what the first thing I'll say to persuade or influence somebody is you got to ask good questions. You got to know what questions to ask at the right time. You got to understand loss aversion. You got to understand your ability to show them and not tell them. These are all things that I study, I train on, and I teach. In fact, next week I'm going to do a video, and I'll be putting this out on how to ask the right questions. What questions are the right ones to ask to reach the decision-making part of the brain, and at what time. So you got to ask the right question at the right time. This will help you, again, persuade anybody, influence everybody, sell anybody, right? And then the second thing is level 5 listening. That's what I call listening with your eyes, right? Listening with your eyes. Not like most extroverts, they call themselves listeners, but really they're just waiting until that person's quiet so they can tell their thing. It's like there's a difference between waiting till somebody stops talking so you can talk and actually listening to what they have to say because it means something to you so that you could better serve them. And so we want to have level 5, listen with your eyes. Number 3 is restatements. Research showed that there was this study done over in Europe that servers who were serving food, if the only thing they did was restated back the order, and they got 70% better tips. So this one thing today, you can start implementing. Somebody tells you what they have going on, their problem, their challenge, their symptom, their issue. You restate that to them. You make restatements. You're actually going to make them feel understood. People buy because they feel understood, not because they understand. So take that one to the bank. Making restatements. In fact, selling anybody has to come down to 3 things, really. Telling the right stories at the right time, asking the right questions at the right time, and making restatements. Like I could boil it down and all delivering it to the primal brain with your communication. So all that to say, ask better questions at the right time, level 5 listening, restatements. Ambiverts were the best. Introvert, extrovert, it doesn't matter. You are a good communicator and you're going to get better day by day, especially as you continue to tune into me because that's what I can help you with. So there it is. God bless. We'll see you on the next one.